It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at a stop. I thought I was fine, and then once I got home, I realized it's a lot worse than I thought. I ended up having a ruptured disc. You say you're not hurting, and then an hour later, you're saying you're in all this pain. I just felt like most people would think that I was lying. That's when I decided to call Daniel Stark. I owe a lot to Daniel Stark. They really got me what I deserved.
The difference is stark.
Just use AMP-Pace.
AMP-Pace.
With Ease US makes studio quality voiceovers for your videos online in over 149 languages and dialects, featuring 468 natural AI voices. Customize the volume, mood, and pauses to perfectly match your content. Plus, capture high quality videos with no watermark. Record your screen, webcam, and voice, and save them instantly to your computer. Never been easier to create professional grade videos and voiceovers. Try it today at easeus.com. That's EASEUS.com. Ease US. Since our founding, we've been revolutionizing hair removal with cutting-edge technology and a commitment to empowerment. The U-Like Air 3, launched in 2023, ushers in a new era of sapphire ice cooling technology, offering nearly painless hair reduction in just 3 weeks. Experience the future of hair removal today at ulike.com, because at U-Like, beauty is about looking and feeling good. That's ULIKE.com. U-Like.
Hi, I'm Mitch, the co-founder of Cake, a sexual health and wellness company designed for today and designed for you. Yes, you. The entire product line can be found at hellocake.com, and it's also available in every Walmart near you.
Send money abroad in just a few steps with Remitly. Sign up with your email, enter an amount, choose how your loved ones receive the money, enter your recipient's information, select a payment method, hit send, and relax. Download the Remitly app today.
Looking for tickets to the hottest shows, games, and events? Ticket Liquidator is your one-stop shop for great prices, no hassles, and guaranteed tickets. Whether it's sports, theater, or concert, for the best seats at the biggest events, start with Ticket Liquidator today at ticketliquidator.com. Ticket Liquidator.
Tervis is all about staying hydrated. Each product is built to last and comes in endless designs to match your personality. Stay refreshed and express yourself with Tervis. Visit tervis.com today and find your perfect tumbler.
It is the Pete Sousa Show, and we are live here from our Flower Mound Studios. Cam Stewart back in Beantown, Chris Visser in Orlando, Florida. Mike Sousa, hopefully making his way home on the commute. We love how Mike picks us up on the podcast version, which you can catch anywhere you get your podcasts. A lot of folks have actually been reaching out. I mean, what's your definition of a lot? Well, what's my definition, I guess? You'll have to just guess. But a good amount of people have been saying, hey, it's really awesome that the podcast version is up and in such clean form, and we don't have to deal with too many commercials. So check us out. Like and subscribe. Same deal with the YouTube channel, which we surged yesterday to above 93,000 subscribers. So we're rocking and rolling. We're going to the Super Bowl. Cam is really excited because his Patriots are going to be there. Of course, we're going to talk NFL, and we're going to start with a little college basketball. But in between all of that, we're going to talk to Howard Balzer, Hall of Fame NFL writer for the USA Today forever, and somebody who has been to, I'm guessing, 40 Super Bowls. We'll ask him. And I'd say probably around 40. But again, I'll talk to him about that.
I believe the number is 44. Pete.
Wow. So Visser's at 38, right?
Yep.
And Howard is at 44.
Yes.
And Cam is about to be at 1.
Little one.
You're our rookie of the year, right?
Yeah. It feels like that, though.
Scotty B. By the way, this is what I love. My man, Scotty B's hitting it hard early this morning, saying what's up, and we're saying what's up right back. Scotty B, the Baylor King. Okay. Sikora Family Ford, thank you so much for what you do for us. And thank you what you do for me personally. My car, which I was in a wreck about 2 months ago. And let me tell you, this process has been slow. But Sikora Family Ford finally got their hands on the car yesterday and totaled it out. So thank you to Sikora Family Ford. And thank you to the good Lord for the wreck and the accident happening in West, where Sikora Family Ford's body shop could actually get involved. People I trust. And along with Daniel Stark Injury Lawyers, people who do right by you. And I am in the business of getting a new car soon, and I would imagine Sikora Family Ford will be the first place that I stop by. And the thing I would say about Sikora Family Ford is it's a great place you could go like dip your toe in the water, and they're not weirdos. They're not going to like almost chase you out of there. You know, like if you're a guy and you go into a department store, I can't do it. I mean, that's got to be 90% of the reason people shop online, because they get accosted every time they set foot in one of those places. Sikora Family Ford's not like that. And also Slovacics of West, please stop in there. I mean, just do it for yourself. Do yourself a favor, man. Have a kolache. Experience the wonder of what it's like to be in West and to walk into Slovacics, to see Ray, to see the happy faces, and to be a part of something special. You know, and we'd like to thank all our sponsors on the Pete Sousa Show. I can't believe we have an outlet called the Pete Sousa Show. I'm still waiting for the other shoe to drop on that one. Okay, so I have in my hand an affidavit. No, I have in my hand a box score. By the way, when I was in TV news, we had this guy, John Carroll, right? And John Carroll would go live at 6 o'clock, and he would be like, I have here this affidavit that says that Officer Ray Miles sexually violated 14 girls over the course of 17 years on. And we were always like, yo, John, isn't that the affidavit that we can all just go print online like everybody at home? He acted like the sheriff handed it to him. Anyways, that was good TV. Good TV last night, man. BYU, Arizona. Okay. College basketball is on fire. Even the fact that the Duke game that led up to it was a stinker, it was still on fire. It was such a vibe. And again, man, you can say whatever you want about the transient nature of college basketball, college sports. If you were an alien and you parachuted into Cameron Indoor last night, right? Namesake of our good friend Cam Stewart in Boston. But if you were to have just arrived, right, in Cameron Indoor, you'll be like, this is the most insane college basketball. Well, you're an alien, so you don't know that. But you'd say this is the most insane environment, right? And honestly, I don't know what these guys are doing out in front of me, but it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. And really, that basketball game, the way that Duke plays, they're so fluid, they're so cohesive, and they're so good. And, you know, if it's not a putback dunk, you're getting beat off the dribble. You got Cam Boozer just completely boofing on you, going to the rack. Like, they are very good. And they win by 30 last night. And then the nightcap comes, right? And then you're going out to Provo, 18,000 strong. That place, having called games there, honestly, at this point, I think 4 or 5 every night, even when the team was kind of middling, they're coming out. Like, you'd be hard pressed to find an open seat in that arena. Last night, obviously, no different. So loud, place is electric. Arizona really outplayed BYU all night long. BYU made a run down the stretch. I think they had a 12-2 run over the last minute of the game, which put them in position to possibly win it. Okay, and at the buzzer, Rob Wright, BYU gets the ball down 1. Okay, after they tie it up in the corner during this furious comeback, and they get a jump ball. Possession arrow favors BYU. By the way, the sports gods didn't want us to see the tie up because if you were watching the game live, for whatever reason, we lost connection to the arena, which was kind of wild right during this like mad scramble for the basketball. But right when we came back, it was probably a split second. But right when we came back, Rob Wright's pounding on the ground, and it's clear that BYU has possession of the basketball. And they call the last play for Rob. And, you know, Rob Wright hit a game winner against Clemson. And the way that he got into the lane, if you saw the game, and used his body to create space to get a shot, was really masterful. It was probably a great design by Kevin Young, but you can't design a play that calls for the ridiculous athletic ability of Braden Burries, right? Coming from the backside to block Rob's shot. My first inclination, and I've got this bug up my ass about Rob Wright lately, and I think I've been infected by the Baylor like fan base and like how they feel like they were wronged by him. My first reaction was like, see, he's too short. Like, I'm hating on Rob Wright, like, which is kind of unfortunate. And Rob really, that was only he only had 3 field goals all night long. BYU, okay, I'll say this to my BYU kinfolk, all right? I call you kinfolk because I feel like we're family. I got a message last night from a guy, an NBA executive. Yes, your boy still has contacts in the NBA, and some people I still talk with. And this executive texted me and said, AJ DiBonsa will probably be an NBA All-Star, right? But the guy, he was texting me because he knows I'm Mr. Big 12. And he said, but the guy tries to do way too much every time down the floor. He actually operates as though he is Donovan Mitchell's in a playoff game. Like, he's just trying to do too much. And I think last night we witnessed some of that. And I think when you look at BYU, if they're going to continue this ascent, and if they are going to put the finishing touches on this wonderful story that has been the rise of their basketball program, making the Sweet 16 last year for the first time since the early 80s, late 70s, they're going to have to find a way to play perimeter defense against guards, right? Like Jaden Bradley and Braden Burries. Those two guys last night combined for 54 points. And I think they shot 18 of 29. No, 19 of 28. 19 of 28 overall and 4 of 6 from 3. This is not the first time this has happened to BYU. And the way that basketball is played in March, it might not be the last. Like, if you can't guard the perimeter in a world where teams are shooting threes the majority of the time, like, you're going to be in trouble. And BYU's perimeter defense left a lot to be desired last night. And when you play guards like that, and Arizona is a unique foe. I mean, they're 21-0, 8-0 in the Big 12. Now, you read, honestly, and it's funny, reading articles after the game last night, folks who cover the team in Tucson are talking about how the schedule has been kind of weak. And, you know, Arizona was almost exposed again last night. Like, there's a bitter taste in that fan base's mouth right now. At least there was in this beat writer's mouth, but I feel like he speaks for the majority of the Arizona fan base when he says, hey, let's not get too caught up in this early success once again, because in the Tommy Lloyd era, as well as we've done during the regular season, we have flamed out. And this is an example of how we could do it again. But I'm like, yo, you're 21-0. You just beat BYU on the road. Like, put your feet up, bro. Stop trying to, like, you know, wrestle for content here. I think Arizona's doing phenomenal. BYU, if I was a BYU fan, I'd be somewhat concerned. We're starting to see some warts. Again, DiBonsa last night, 6 of 24 from the floor, 1 of 8 from 3. He gets to the free throw line. But I worry a little bit about what he's trying to do. Like Richie Saunders would have been a great option for that last shot. You know, the whole world's going to be looking at Rob Wright and AJ DiBonsa. And Richie Saunders was 7 for 11 in that game, 3 of 7 for 3 for 18 points. Like, that's a pretty steady option. And I got the feeling if you get Rob Wright going downhill, you're going to have him open. So bottom line, Big 12 basketball was just absolutely amazing last night. And now I guess, Cam, we should probably transition to I don't want to keep Howard Balzer waiting. That is for sure. Right. So I figure we might want to maneuver right now and welcome Howard in. Is that something you can make happen, Cam, for us?
It's happening as we speak. Howard, welcome to the show.
Hey, Howard, how's it going?
Going well. Hey, I was enjoying listening to you there. So I always like to get on these things early enough to just, get settled and do all that. And when the host comes to me, that's fine, whatever it is. But appreciate it. Thanks.
Hey, I don't keep Hall of Famers like you waiting. I don't. I really don't. And I so appreciate you for your time, having read you for so long growing up when I was a kid, and getting a hold of the USA Today was a big deal. And being able to kind of learn about the sport, learn about the NFL from someone like you. And back then, when access was so special, like when it meant so much, and we were hearing from you about things that happened on ground zero, all the Super Bowls you covered. And I'd like to start there. What's the number one thing, if there's a small thing that we don't account for, right, that you see play out on the field almost every time in a Super Bowl? What is it, that little thing that the public maybe misses, that you have seen play out in Super Bowls that dictate the final score?
It's a great question. And first, let me thank you when you were referencing back to reading me that you didn't mention the sporting news, because that really would have aged me. But no, I in the Super Bowl,
as long as I got the Dave Kindred and you know what I mean, I got to read his nice from the editor, I was in good shape, and then I get to you.
Man, appreciate that. But I'll tell you, I look at the Super Bowl. I don't want to sit there and say, well, it's just like any other game. But in some respects, it is. And the one thing that is always struck me about pro football and really football in general, but especially in the NFL, is that I don't think this is thought of that many times, that if you have, as it is now, 48 players that are active for the game on each team, right? And the only one that probably won't play is the backup quarterback. So that means that any of those other guys, even if they're on the field for 5 special teams plays, can have a real impact on what happens in the game. And certainly we all focus on the quarterback and the defense or the offense and all those things. But what strikes me always is, and you wonder, who's going to be the guy that no one has talked about all week, has probably sat at his table at the media gatherings, and he's doing whatever because no one is talking to him. Which of those guys are going to make the play that maybe changes the game, or which of those guys is going to be the one that doesn't make a play that has it go the other way? And those are the details. It's what I've always been enamored with in football, because there's so many opportunities for so many different guys to make that play. You always hear coaches say this, Pete. Coaches always say that even with, there'll be, you never know how many plays there's going to be in the game, but the average is about 120, 125 plays in a game, offense and defense, and then throw in another maybe 30 on special teams. But coaches will always say there's 4 or 5 plays that will really make the difference. And that's what it comes down to a lot of times. And a lot of times we don't see it, whether it's media or fans or whatever. I mean, who truly didn't do his assignment on a play that has that play blow up? Everybody at home is saying, well, it was a bad play call, right? It was a bad play call. I mean, I was thinking as you were talking basketball, I said this to someone the other day. Have you ever heard anyone after a team has lost any game in college basketball, pro basketball, whatever it is, regular season playoffs, have you ever heard anyone say afterwards, oh, boy, that was just bad play calling, right? You never hear that, but you hear it all the time from fan bases in the NFL when an offense struggles or a play done, well, bad play call. Bad play calling. Anyone knows what the play call was it adjusted? Did the defense make the right adjustment to combat that play? Those are all the games within a game that happens in football, in a game where, state the obvious, there's 11 guys on the field. for every play. And all of them have a responsibility on each play. And that's why the big sign was always in the Patriots locker room under Bill Belichick. Do your job. Don't worry about the other guy. Do your job. And the team that has most of their guys do their job are the ones that will find a way to win. So I know that's kind of maybe a little rambling answer there, but that's what I found in the Super Bowl or big games everywhere. And then we talk about it afterwards, and most of the time things get ignored. I'll give you one interesting example.
Please.
In the game Sunday between the Patriots and the Browns, all anyone wants to talk about is Sean Payton's play call, as if he knew what the conditions were going to be later in the game, right?
Yeah, we knew there was going to be snow. That's a great point. We did not know like a freaking blizzard was coming. I couldn't agree with you more.
Right. Well, Will Lutz, or Lutz, however you pronounce his name, the Broncos kicker, mentioned after the game, and I went back and looked at it on replay, and I could see what he was talking about. He said because the snow covered up everything, except for the 5-yard increments in the field, we estimated where to put the ball down on the snap. And he says, I think we were a yard short.
Wow.
Those things are all part of the details of the sport. It's 8 yards from the snap to the placement. And I went back and looked at the replay. It looked to me like it might have been 2 yards short of 8 yards because they couldn't see, they didn't know if they were putting the ball down in the right spot. And who knows, if they're a yard back, a yard and a half back, maybe that guy who jumped in the ball, with his fingers, he doesn't block it and it goes through. We have a tie game, and who knows what happens after that. So those are the little things that hardly anybody talks about after the game. And those are the things that just I've always found just fascinating about the game of football.
Well, and that's why the Super Bowl is sort of its own entity in a sense where, Mother Nature really can't play a role. I mean, the one game in East Rutherford, right, at MetLife, I guess that was the one where the conditions were somewhat at play, and that was a huge Seattle win. All the things we're talking about now, Howard, it leads me to a question that just popped into my head. You talk about guys that can make a name for themselves that we've never heard of. We're talking about the Patriots in the Super Bowl. And it makes me think of Malcolm Butler, especially with Seattle. Did you ever get any inkling as to why exactly Malcolm Butler did not play in that Super Bowl in Minneapolis when they played the Eagles? Did anybody ever figure that out? And what is the deal with that secret?
It's a great question because Belichick has never revealed what the reason was. Malcolm Butler, I'm in Arizona now and cover the Cardinals. He came here for a brief time, one season, well after that play, and he wouldn't talk about it. No one has ever truly said why that decision was made in the Super Bowl. He didn't play, much less the play he made, obviously, when the Seahawks played the Patriots in that Super Bowl, and he made that interception. But no one has ever said it. No one truly knows. Some say, well, that's the reason the Patriots lost that game, but I mean, hey, who knows? But certainly there had to be something pretty bad to go on there where he didn't play a snap on defense in that entire game and had one of the most iconic plays, made one of the most iconic plays in Super Bowl history that no one would have ever guessed would happen. Rookie I'm pretty sure he was a rookie, undrafted free agent. And then we learned the story afterward that they actually practiced that play during the week. They practiced it, and the word was that Malcolm Butler blew it every time. He didn't get to where he was supposed to do what he was supposed to do. But in that moment, he saw it, he went for it, and the crazy thing about it was if the ball was just incomplete, which it probably should have been, then no harm, no foul, and they probably run the ball in the next play. But he made a really difficult interception, which obviously gave the Patriots the victory there. But one thing I'll say about it, and I always react to the narratives that get out there. And of course, all Richard Sherman would say for years, he probably still says it. Oh boy, that play, we had the defense, we had this, we had that. If you just go to Marshawn Lynch, we win the game. Well, what everyone forgets is that the Seahawks led that game by 10 points in the fourth quarter. And their great Legion of Boom defense gave up 2 touchdowns that allowed the Patriots to win the game. Now, it was Tom Brady. I get it. So there's no harm in giving up touchdowns, but it was as if Richard Sherman and all the defense forgot about that, right? And probably say that, hey, that had a big impact on the game also. It's why we're trying to come from behind. So, yeah, there's all of that. But, yeah, answer your basic question. Never found out. I don't know if we ever will.
How about you? So 44th Super Bowl. So you're taking me back now. I love the Super Bowl. I think so. Was your first one Bengals and 49ers in Detroit? Was that your first one?
This is actually 45.
45.
And I missed one in the pandemic year. It didn't go that year. So the first one was actually, I guess, the year before that. It was the 1980s.
Super Bowl 15. That was the Eagles and the Raiders.
The Eagles and the Raiders. And it was crazy because it was my first one, and I grew up in Philadelphia.
Oh, where'd you grow up in Philly? I grew up right in Bryn Mawr, Rosemont.
Oh, wow. I was on the other side in Montgomery County.
Let's go. Okay.
I had a lot of friends on that side. And so it was interesting growing up because it was in Springfield, Montgomery County, and there's a Springfield in Delaware County. And back in the day, when you'd get a snow day, there was no electronics or anything like that. You just listened to the radio.
KYW.
Yeah, and they would, and they might, and here's the schools that are closed. And a lot of times they say Springfield and wouldn't designate which one it was. And you say, okay, we're closed. We don't have to go to school today. But that made that one, a little cool because I was still relatively young then. But the Eagles obviously got beat by the Raiders. But fast forward, Dick Vermeil comes to St. Louis when I was there to be the head coach and got as close to Dick Vermeil as anybody in football in terms of a coaching capacity or anything like that I've ever had. Still talk to him to this day. I mean, one of the most gracious human beings I've ever met, who, by the way, in October turned 89 years old. Wow. I mean, or 88, somewhere in there. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And every time I talk to him, he says, "Say hello to Bernie for me." That's my wife's nickname. And he says it every single time. That's the essence of Dick Vermeil. But yes, that was my first Super Bowl in the 1980 season.
So what is that like for you when you
Orleans? That was a crazy time.
I do want to ask you about. Let me go back to that particular Super Bowl. You're talking about the Raiders, like John Matuzak. Obviously Al Davis. They got Lester Hayes on D. They're just like this group of rough and tumbled bikers, and then they play the Eagles, who are this buttoned up squad. And at the time, the word was that Dick Vermeil was just almost hanging on too tight. Right after that, you witnessed it, a different style of coaching in St. Louis in a Super Bowl. But what about the Raiders was so different from what we see NFL teams, how they comport themselves now? I mean, when you were back in that, whether it was media day or, it's 1980, 1981 at the time, what was it like to cover a group of outlaws like the Oakland Raiders getting ready for a Super Bowl?
Well, I have a good friend who I worked with for many years, still do, Frank Cooney of the Sports Exchange, who covered from the Bay Area, covered the 49ers and the Raiders. And I mean, he tells me the stories all the time, that some of them can't even be repeated about. It was just a team of renegades. And Al Davis, that whole persona, just win, baby. I mean, he didn't care about a guy's character, his personality, or any of those things. If he thought a guy could help them win games, he brought them in. And you mentioned how buttoned up the Eagles were, and Dick Vermeil admitted it afterwards. And actually, he was still like that in St. Louis for his first couple of years of coaching, where there was almost a mutiny one year from players. They were having 3-a-days in training camp. It was so insane. But the Raiders obviously were the exact opposite. I mean, I mentioned the game being in New Orleans. You go down the French Quarter at night and be hanging around, and there's Raiders players there. I mean, especially early in the week when there was no curfew. And that's just the way they roll. And obviously, they had a lot of great players, no question about it. But the name that just came to me, though, and just referencing your first question, was the guy who had interceptions in that game, who really turned it in the Raiders' favor, was Rod Martin. I mean, you mentioned Rod Martin to a lot of interceptions. You mentioned him to a lot of NFL fans and say, who's Rod Martin? Well, he was a hero that day in terms of the way the Raiders just pretty much shut down an Eagles offense that had a huge game with Wilbert Montgomery at running back in the NFC Championship game win over the Cowboys.
How about you and your memorable moments? Like some of the things that you will never forget, and maybe some instances, whether, you were freaked out because of an interaction with the player around the Super Bowl, or you got chills because the moment was so special. Maybe you had a relationship with someone like Vermeil where they were so vulnerable with you and you just captured something that you could use on the record. What sticks out to you about your storied career covering this monumental game?
There's so many, but mentioning Vermeil always brings me back to what happened when the Rams were in the Super Bowl against the Titans in just a magical season that no one could have ever imagined happening. And if those who don't remember, I mean, there was an ice storm in Atlanta later that week that came in later in the week. Well, even before that, it was cold and it was bad. And I was a pool reporter for the Pro Football Writers of America. And what a pool reporter does, there's one for each team because there's no media at practice, right? They do let the TV announcers in one day just to witness everything, but you can't have media there. You can't report on it. So they assign someone to be with each team that goes to practice, watches, obviously, talks to the coach after the game, and then does what's called a pool report that everybody can read. Comments on injuries, how did practice go? Pretty vanilla stuff, right? Well, I go out to practice the first day, and they're practicing at the Falcons facility in Suwanee, Georgia, which is wide open spaces. The field is there. And it is cold. It is freezing cold and windy. And there's no trees or anything, buildings to block the wind. It is absolutely brutal. And needless to say, I was not dressed appropriately for that weather, going down to Atlanta. So I'm out there on the field getting ready, and here comes Dick Vermeil with the wool cap and a parka and gloves and all this stuff. And he comes walking toward me, and I say, "Hey, Coach, how you doing?" And he says to me word for word, "Pete, Howard, get your ass inside," hope I can say that, "and ask Todd to give you whatever you need to keep warm." And Todd was a guy named Todd Hewitt, who was their equipment manager. So I walk into the building, make a quick right, and he has commandeered this room with as much cold weather gear that could outfit an army in Siberia. It was unbelievable. And so the first thing I asked him was, "How did you know to bring all this stuff?" Right? There was no extra week between the game. I mean, the conference championship game was on Sunday, and they had to get down there right away. So he said, "Well, I looked at the weather report a few days before the game in case we were going, and I saw that the weather was going to turn bad. So I just gathered everything that I could to help the players keep warm. And then on top of it, lining the sideline on the practice field were heat warmers on the field that he had rented locally, just so when players are standing around in certain periods, they could stand near those and at least not feel as cold as they would have." And so that's always stayed with. Oh, so, and by the way, I got gloves, got a hat, got thermal underwear, changed there in the room. And it got me through, that day and the last 2 days of practice. And it always struck me that here was Dick Vermeil coming out to say hello. And his first reaction was looking at me and saying, "Get in there so you can." That to me was the essential Dick Vermeil. The only thing I joke to people is, man, I wish I'd had the guts to ask for one of those parkas, because they were not, they were not, but I had the guts to ask for that. Probably if I did, he probably would have given it to me, but said, "That one you have to give back." I mean, I still have the gloves. In fact, they're up here on my shelf. I still have the gloves that I wore that week for practice before the win over the Titans in the Super Bowl.
I love these stories, and I love the intimate relationship you developed with guys like Vermeil. And when you're trying to find a story at the Super Bowl, I always go back to, the Jimmy Breslin quote I remember is like, "Go to the loser's locker room." You know what I mean? Like if you're looking for like an interesting story at the Super Bowl, where there's so many reporters nowadays, how do you get that interesting story, right? That story that to you is unique and that you can tell to give people a different perspective at a game where, like I mentioned, there's just an overwhelming amount of media. Some mean nothing but business and some mean nothing but whatever. But how do you drill down and find that important story among so many other writers and so many other storylines?
Some of it is just, figuring out, is there some angle? Is there some player, one of those guys that no one's talking about that much? Is there a background to him? Is there, something he did during the year, or, maybe it was a guy that was signed during the season, and here he finds himself in the Super Bowl and playing a role. And so it's finding maybe a couple of those, because then when you go to that guy's table in the media availability, then a lot of times there's no one else around him. And so you're getting that story. Now, there's, like you said, there's so much content that week. You wonder, well, is someone really going to read this? But a certain amount of it, you're getting on background. And I'll give you one that I'm trying to remember the Super Bowl. The Patriots were in the game, and they had an issue with their long snapper all year. And late in the season, they signed a guy named Brian Kinchin.
Oh, yes.
Who was teaching at a young, he was teaching in a school. I think it was a religious school
in Louisiana, where he's from, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. And so the Patriots signed him, and here he is in the Super Bowl. And so got to talk with him, a little bit during the week, and all that. And so I followed up on it, and after the game, because he struggled a little bit in that game with snaps, and a couple of them were low, and he was having an issue with it. And I'm pretty sure he was a snapper on a game-winning field goal. And a lot of people probably weren't even thinking about it. I'm saying, boy, I got to know him a little bit, nice guy, and I'm thinking, boy, I hope he doesn't mess up this snap. And I'm sure Belichick is probably, the special teams coach is thinking the same thing. Well, the snap was good. They made the kick, and they win the game. And I go up to him after the game, we're talking. He says, Howard, you wouldn't believe what happened this morning. He said, I really had the coaches freaking out, because at the team meal, he's cutting a piece of bread, and he cuts his finger, which, and I don't remember which hand it was, but basically, it's important, obviously, to have good feeling in your hand and all that to make the snap, and you're not out there all that, you don't have that many opportunities in the game. And so he told me that, and it was weighing on me mentally and all those things, and it led to some, not great snaps. And so I had that story, and I don't think anybody else, I'm pretty sure, I don't know that anybody else had that story after.
That is exactly what I'm talking about. Like that right there. He had played, I think, in Cleveland for Belichick. So they had this kind of relationship or connection a little bit. And yeah, that is an amazing story. Brian Kinchin, that's a great call. When you
a real funny one too, I remember, is that, and I think this was the Super Bowl. Maybe you were thinking that I had been my first. I think this was the Super Bowl.
And by the way, just for clarity, because it hit me, that was a Super Bowl in Detroit where they beat Carolina with a Vinatieri field goal. That one is the one you're talking about.
Vinatieri field goal, which, by the way, followed a Ricky Prohl touchdown that I think tied the game. And he had the touchdown in the Patriots-Rams Super Bowl that tied the game. And Vinatieri kicked the field goal to win that game. So Ricky Prohl was one of the untold stories of that one. And so the 49ers game was one, there was confusion on a play, and no one knew what was going on. And all of a sudden someone ran on the field for the 49ers late, and people were wondering, did they have too many men on the field? And there was a lot of confusion. No one really knew what happened on that play. And it kind of got lost a little bit in the translation. Well, I was curious about it, right? Well, back in the day, the NFL used to have this huge celebration after the game in a ballroom at the headquarters hotel, where they had food and sponsors were there and media was there and all that. Media didn't get there late because they were writing or whatever it might be. And they played, they had the game going on the big screen, right? And so I said, I'm going to go to that, and I'm going to wait for that play to see if I can figure out what happened. And I did. And there was no one around me. And I don't remember exactly what, I think it was a thing. They didn't have 10 guys on the field.
They didn't have 11 guys on the field. It was during the goal line stand, right? Am I correct about that? I think yeah.
And Keena Turner, I believe, was the player who came on late. Yep. And so I'll never forget this, though. There was a PR guy with the NFL, Don Weiss, who sees me sitting there, and there's no one else around. He says, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And I told him, and I said, "This play," and I just figured it out, and this and that. And he says to me, I'm going to have to go let the New York Times know. I said, "Are you kidding me? It's my story."
Yeah.
It was crazy. It was crazy that he said that.
That's amazing work, Howard, because then I'm a little kid growing up, like years later, watching those NFL films things, right, about the Super Bowl, and that's how I know that play. because it was part of that goal line stand, and they didn't have a guy. And maybe that was the Howard Balzer work right there. You know what I mean? Nice job, Howard.
Might have been. I remember sending a note afterward. I don't know what made me do it. I sent a little note to Bill Walsh, saying that I'm sure he had figured it out by then. Right? But I, put a little clip of the shorts. I didn't make a big story of it, but it was part of, my coverage after the game. And he actually sent me a note back saying, "Nice work."
What was for you your most pivotal moment at a Super Bowl where you felt like whether it was as a journalist or as a guy? I mean, again, this event is a kingmaker. It also can turn you into what we will call a GOAT, not the good kind of a GOAT, Yeah. But like, was there a moment for you, a critical moment where you turned the corner as a sports writer where you were like, wow, that I did well there, or I got something that nobody else got?
Well, those are a couple right there. Trying to think of some other times where that might have happened. These came to me as you were asking the question, and so I'm grasping now to think if there was another one. I can't think of.
How was it covering? Here's something that I've been thinking of that I wanted to ask you, and I can't keep you up forever, but so we'll skip to this one. Watching Mike Vrabel coach this year. And seeing, I think Teddy Bruschi, I can't steal it from him. He mentioned to Vrabel in a recent interview, "You remind me of Bill, not Bill Belichick, Bill Parcells." And because I guess Bruschi played for Parcells for 1 year. What do you remember about covering Parcells in those Super Bowls where he won both of them and really cemented his legacy as one of the greatest coaches of all time? I think it's because there's New York and the Giants have something to do with that, but also the type of guy that he was. How was it covering a guy like that during his run to the Super Bowl and then ultimately at the big game?
He was pretty forthcoming. And of course, for the head coaches, they just want all this to be over with, and they have to do their 45 minutes or whatever it is, for a few days each week. But he was, he was pretty good in terms of all the media. And obviously, you're not getting one-on-ones with the coaches or anything like that. But he was, he had a good way of communicating. Let's say that. And he understood what the media was looking for, and he gave good answers. Some coaches just give all these short answers and really, don't go into a lot of depth. And so that's my general feeling on what it was like. And if covering him was the right way to describe it when you're at the Super Bowl, like you said, because there's just so many things going on. But he was like I said, he was one of those coaches that had that excellent way of communicating with the media and pretty much making sure they had what they needed without obviously giving away stuff that that he didn't want to give away.
My brother used to say, he's a therapist. He'd say he's a direct communicator for sure, right? Bill Parcells is a direct communicator. How about a story like this? In Miami, 1989, I think it was Super Bowl 23. Again, it's the Bengals and the 49ers for the second time. Stanley Wilson goes missing. You guys learn the morning of the game, I guess, that he's not going to play because he had relapsed on drugs. How do you cover a story like that? He was their starting running back. I don't think people understand that. And this is a game they lost by a fraction of inches, right? Or by inches. How do you as a media member cover that story the right way? A delicate story like that.
Yeah, it's difficult, and especially when it happens after the fact. But the crazy thing about that is that this is a guy who had previous issues, obviously. If I recall correctly, he had been suspended, but he had come back and played that season and had a big role with the Bengals. And here's the crazy part about it, Pete, is he opened up about it. And I remember being around his table when he talked about it. And maybe it was podium. I'm not sure if he had a podium or whatever it might have been during the media availability. He opened up about it. And I remember someone asking him the question of, when did it just hit you and dawn on you that you had to get this under control? And he told the story of how he was in his car and he had a young son in the back seat and he was doing drugs, doing cocaine in the car. And he said, that was my moment. And that's when I said, I've got to get this under control. And that's where he dedicated. And it became a pretty big story during the week about his redemption, his overcoming this. And that's why when all of a sudden we find out what happened the night before, it was just hard to comprehend. This was only a few days after he had talked to, and it just shows the grasp that this can have on a person. I mean, it's almost like the crazy story when that Raiders.
Barrett Robbins, Visser just sent us a note about that, like to ask about that. Well, can you expound on that moment? Because that's another guy. He was the center. They had changed some of their line calls, an essential part of their blueprint to victory or for victory that week, and he disappears into Tijuana. Yeah,
he disappears, and apparently he had gone off. You know, he had a lot of issues with whether it was. I don't even remember the exact, whether it was bipolar or whatever it was, and he was on some medication, apparently just the enormity of the week was when, and he stopped. I don't know if he did it then or prior to the game or prior to that week. He stopped taking his medication, and the enormity of it all obviously just got to him. And I can recall that game was in San Diego, and I can recall being on the bus, riding with media to the game when someone found out about it. I'm fairly sure there was no internet then. You know, there weren't text messages and social media and all that. But maybe it was being talked about on a pregame show, whatever it was. The word started spreading, and I remember hearing about that on the bus. That what had happened with Barrett Robbins, because he left on it was on a Friday that he left. And there's nobody around the teams and the media or anything like that on Saturday. So there was no way of anybody outside the team really knowing about it. But I do recall, you know, talking to Raiders players after the game and just how what a distraction it was. And you never want to admit to all those things, but these guys are human. I think sometimes there's people out there that don't view these guys as human beings. And you're affected by that. I mean, he was their starting center. And so like I said, I remember talking to different players about that, you know, afterward. And so that was, you know, there's all those things. It's all a lot of it's coming. You know, what was that Meatloaf song? I think it's all coming
back to me now. Yeah.
One right after the other. You know, you start remembering all these things from, you know, all these years of, you know, going to the game.
Who's your number one guy? Last question. Who's your number one guy at Super Bowl week to hang with? Like if you've got a really good friend that you've made over the years covering the NFL, who's the guy? Who's Howard's guy that you're really looking forward to seeing and spending time with?
Well, one of them I mentioned earlier, Frank Cooney with the Sports Exchange. We worked together for many, many years. He's even got a few years on me. So it's over. But the one thing I do say, and this is what happens when you've been around it as long as I have. This game, by the way, will completes my 50th season covering pro football.
Congratulations, man, and thank you.
I appreciate it. And the thing that strikes me every year is you walk around Radio Row during the week, and then you go to different things with the media, and you go, "Wow, boy, this guy isn't here anymore. This guy isn't here anymore. They're still doing some things, but they're not coming to the Super Bowl." And a certain amount of that is the Hall of Fame. Being a part of that election process. This was my 23rd class that I'm, you know, helping elect. And we used to meet in the Super Bowl city to do that vote on Saturday before the game. And so some guys who weren't even covering that much would still come in for a few days, and you'd see them and you'd hang with them. Now we do it on Zoom, this month. And so a lot of the guys that you would hang with and see and look for, oh man, because I don't travel during the season like other guys and see everybody in press boxes. So it was always a lot of those guys, you know, the John McClanes of the world, you know, the Claytons, who sadly is no longer with us. But all those guys, you know, was always great to see. But you walk around Radio Row and go to the media event that they have on Tuesday night, and you're looking around and you're going, man, every year there's fewer people that I know that are here, and that's just the story of life.
Howard Balzer, I got to tell you, I don't say this to every media member I talk to, but thank you for your service. You have done an amazing job over 50 years, and I'll say it for Dick Vermeil and for all of us. Say hi to Bernie. All right. Please do.
I will do that.
Thank you so much. And I'll be at the Super Bowl. If I see you, I'll run up to you, shake your hand, and introduce myself. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Sounds good. Enjoy coming on. My wife always says, "Boy, you're doing another one of these." Hey, that's what I do. I talk ball. I mean, come on.
I love it. I mean, I honestly, I could keep you here forever, dude. Thank you.
The funny thing is, she's a pretty solid sports fan, and we talk ball. And she always says, man, I wish the fans would. And she says, don't go on social media. You're not going to convince these people of all this stuff. And she says to me often, well, that's an interesting perspective. Thanks for that. And so we
need your perspective. And by the way, I'm sure she's a little disappointed in you that you were dressed so poorly for Atlanta in 1999. I mean, that is something. I know my fiance would read me the riot act. So that's on us, I guess.
We weren't together then. And
okay.
I wasn't Todd Hewitt. I didn't check the weather forecast. So I had no gloves, just a little leather jacket and no hat. Nothing. It was. I'll always remember it, like I said. But appreciate coming on with you. Enjoyed it. Anytime you want to talk, certainly willing.
All right, thanks so much, Howard. Take care. Wow, what a treat! What a treat! Really, I could have talked to him forever. I think we have a lot of stuff in common from Philly, because if he knows Vermeil, he knows Jim Murray. Jim Murray, a guy that was really close with my family and just passed away recently, was the Eagles GM and member of our church at St. Thomas. So, that was really cool to talk with Howard. What an absolute treat. And if you guys grew up, if you're around my age, you just know how special that conversation was for me, because he was a part of your life too, I'm sure, if you're watching this show. All right, the Pete Sousa Show continues after this. We're presented by Slovaceks. A little bit more on the Super Bowl. And I'm going to leave you with this. Who is the best NFL broadcaster, play-by-play guy? Cam's going to tell us when we come back. And he's also going to tell us the best analyst and some other things real quick before we get out of here today. The Pete Sousa Show.
Overwhelmed by your inbox? Clean Email is here to help. Organize, clean, and manage your emails with powerful automation tools. Say goodbye to spam and clutter and enjoy a stress-free inbox. Try Clean Email today at cleanemail.com.
What if you could clean clean? With bio-based formulas and deep cleaning enzymes. No dyes, phthalates, or mystery ingredients. Just powerful pods for your dishes and laundry. Now you can, with drops. Made clean, made to clean.
Welcome to Kit Bag, the ultimate destination for football fans. Whether you're cheering for Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester United, or any other top club, for true football passion, think Kit Bag. Visit kitbag.com today. That's kitbag.com. Kit Bag.
It's the Restore Clarity Focus Patch, my little secret weapon for staying sharp, focused, and on task. Each box comes with simple instructions inside, so you always know exactly how to apply it. Each patch lasts for 3 days. I love that I can wear it all day.
Samsonite is the world leader in durable, high-quality luggage and travel accessories. Travel with Samsonite and pack confidence every step of the way. Shop now at shop.samsonite.com. Samsonite. At Tusane's, we understand that maintaining a healthy lifestyle can be challenging, especially in today's fast-paced world. That's why our mission is to make fitness accessible to everyone, anywhere. Visit Tusanes.com today and start your journey to better health. That's TOUSAINS.com.
A house is a property, but we live in homes. Home sweet home. Homes where the heart is. We aim to deliver the best home buying and selling experience so you can spend less time real estating and more time living.
Unlock a world of convenience with Mullybox, your one-stop solution for personalized subscription boxes delivered right to your door. Each box is tailored to your tastes. Mullybox.com. That's MULLYBOX.com.
Better sleep, inspired by nature. Your back, hips, and shoulders will fall into perfect alignment in any position, meaning that you get deeper, more comfortable rest. Visit ecoterrabeds.com.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports.
Welcome to Market XLS, your all-in-one Excel solution for investors. Designed as an enterprise-grade platform, Market XLS caters to investment managers, secure and efficient investment management and research. Book your free demo
Everybody at Equalife really has a passion and a real interest in helping people feel well. How much further can we go to get you feeling even better? It is a complete partnership between the two of us.
So all you have to do is tap your Popple to the back of someone's phone, like that, and they instantly get your social media and contact info right on their screen. They don't need an app or a Popple to receive your info. So get your Popple today and start impressing everyone you meet. Make it pop.
It's hard to find supplements that work. No, thank you. Plant-based supplements made from the Earth's most powerful plants for your immune health, gut health, workouts, and more. Find out more at auraorganic.com.
Stability.
All right, the Pete Sousa Show. Thank you so much to Hall of Fame sports writer Howard Balzer covering his 45th Super Bowl this year. A real treat to talk to him. Cam, make yourself available real quick before we get out of here. I did want to go over that list with you. We're jammed on time here. As we got my main man, Artman Terrace, coming up. We're taping that for tomorrow, and that's going to be, you guys got to check this out because he's got a new book out. It's called The Bookie, and we're going to take you inside of it tomorrow. But Cam, take us inside some of these rankings real quick. Where the hell did you get these?
So this is a Boston sports guy on Twitter. It was just kind of one of these engagement farming posts that he had commented on, and it was like, which of these broadcasting duos is the best in the NFL? And I just knew right up Pete Sousa's alley.
Okay. Let's just real quick, hands down, it's Buck and Aikman. It's a joke that anybody else would even enter the realm. Really, I hate to say that, and I'm not trying to take a dump on other, teams or play-by-play guys or analysts, but that's just that's my vote going away. How about you?
I mean, if you're talking about the combo, I'm there with you because I think Buck is the best. Aikman did not have a great game, Patriots Texans, I will say, but typically he is dynamite.
You say something negative about that's Bush League. You say something negative about the Patriots?
No. It was just a little too dumbed down from what I remember. Okay. A little too dumbed down. Like the same thing we kind of critique Romo for. And
this list, by the way, Buck, if you were to have
crazy.
If you were to have your number 1 and 1, Buck and Collinsworth have worked together before, right? That was their first crew with Aikman. And Joe Buck says it perfectly. He says Troy is a guy who Collinsworth kind of has to tell you he played football. Whereas Troy, everybody knows he played football.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think Collinsworth has kind of regressed from some of that. Everybody knows Chris Collinsworth now, but there was a point in time where I think he needed to remind you. Troy is just so full of confidence, I don't know. I love their chemistry. I do.
It's always been great. Like it's always been great. And it is still weird. Still after it's been a few years now, but it is weird to hear them on ESPN and not Fox. Like that dude,
it blows. I'm watching the Fox game and I think Brady did tremendous. But watching
Brady's
that
having a great year.
Yes. Watching that game on Fox though, I missed Buck and Aikman together. Like Brady's on fire, dude. Like he literally, when he talked about the shoulder pads, did you see that part about like you can't tell what route he's running because he never changes the level of his shoulder pads? Like I'm like, wow, that's really good.
That's the kind of thing. Like I get why the people who aren't football psychos are like, oh, what's he even talking about there? But he's got a way now to appeal to both. Like when you put Brady in there, you do want some football sicko things, right? Like, this is the guy who poured over it the most during his career. So that's kind of what you're trying to tap into. So I'm glad that he's like Romo. They told him to be funny and he's not funny. Brady, they told to be a sicko and he's good at that. And like you do get some great, like even if it's just 1 or 2 a game where he's kind of explaining something in depth. I love that. So
my man cousin Sal said, as long as he's not getting Botox in the booth during the game, I'm
could be
good.
happening. Who knows, man?
Who knows? All right, we're out of here. We're presented by Savachix. We'll check you tomorrow. Artman Terrace. You don't want to miss it. Thank you guys for watching.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports.
We definitely love our relationship and love Extraco. It's been an amazing experience.
They made the PPP process easier. They were reaching out to me saying, what can I do to help you? That made a huge difference because my stress level, when we shut down, to afterwards was night and day.
Our experience with Extraco has been phenomenal since the very beginning, so we love Extraco.
Nobody tells our stories better than our clients.
The difference is stark. I was rear-ended at 70 miles an hour. I was injured, had a concussion. The insurance company, they delayed. They were playing games from the initial conversation. They weren't going to help me. The biggest thing I learned through this is that you can't go through this alone. I called Daniel Stark. They were going to help me and everything was going to be all right. Daniel Stark got me 10 times the insurance company offered.
The difference is Stark.
Nalgene Outdoor has been your trusted companion, fueling adventures and helping protect the planet. We're committed to reducing waste, improving access to clean water, and providing simple, safe, and sustainable products for you and your family. NALGENE.com.
Our professionals are not only experts in managing urgent concerns, but also in providing top-notch preventative health care. We're proud to connect pet owners to a vast network of licensed veterinary professionals, ready to address any immediate concerns. Book your first appointment today.
Sports.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.